Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
I feel like Whack and Eradication need to get off Funcom's dick and actually talk about the issues in Conan Exiles. I think it's atrocious what's happening with the game, what's been allowed to exist in the game for far too long, to the point where the game is practically unplayable. And I get it. It's not a video you want to be making, especially like if you are a content creator. You don't want to be shitting on the game that you're making content for. That's kind of counterintuitive. The way I see it is, Age of War was Funcom's chance to like save the game basically in terms of PvP, and you would think that that's what Age of War would be about. Just based off the name, you would expect it to have PvP stuff, but instead it's just a bunch of cosmetics. It's a bunch of, oh hey, we really want you to interact with the game by doing shitty farming routes and fighting bosses that are really boring to fight and reworking damage and all the fucking health pool numbers and everything. And like it is actually the most disastrous update in Conan Exile's history. And there are some people who are still like powering through it and playing the PvP side of it. But I know a lot of people who have completely quit because of the update, and will probably never be back. Um, maybe they'll be on legacy servers and that, but in terms of the current form of Conan Exiles, I know a lot of people who just don't want to play this shit. It's awful. And it's not just awful for the PvP players, like PvE players didn't ask for this either. And on paper the changes were great. You get an overhaul of the legendaries, you make them the best in terms of raw damage, but you also like they also were like we're gonna make them unique as well. So they gave them a bunch of unique effects for diversity, which ended up being kind of a lie. I mean, we got some unique effects, but nothing like what some of the weapons used to have, and nothing super strong. I mean, you got the Black Dragon Pike, yeah, and it's got a bleed effect, but the bleed only stacks up to one. You get a stack of one bleed, which is really ass. It's like it could be good if you could stack multiple bleed onto a person, but one stack of bleed is complete shit. And that's a really hard pike to get. And yeah, it is the best agility pike to have it. Well, one of the best. I would say that the vaulting pole is better just because you can apply poison to it, and you can't apply poison to the Black Dragon pike. But that's getting off topic. This is not a meta video. A rework of the purge system. So they're promising a more engaging approach to what was previously poorly implemented. And Purge was always more of a chore to complete than an interesting game mechanic. So like that was an exciting prospect, I guess. If you're a PvP player, you're sick of bugged purges, I guess, and but you don't really care about it as a PvP player. You're doing it for the good thralls you can get, basically. Being having an opt-in, opt-out thing is kind of weird. In terms of you got to build up the coffer. I'm on the fence. Obviously, it hasn't been introduced yet, which is another shit thing about this age. It's like we got chapter 1 of Age of War and nothing's been implemented except for the treasure system, which has no effect right now apart from collect treasure. So we don't even know what that'll look like, but I assume it'll just be, hey, farm up some gold and silver, which is super easy because you get a bunch of it from Mechamosis, like doing the Kurak dungeon. And then you make a bunch of piles of coins, and that's it. That's how you get your purge to spawn, and you can just farm up enough so that you can get the best purges at whatever location you want, because you just have a purge base. And you just have a coffer inside the purge base so that you get purged there. I'm guessing that's how it'll work. And so, yeah, the enemies come set up outside, and who knows if that'll even work, man. I doubt it will. I think the purge will be complete mess. I don't think it'll work properly. But in reality, what we've got in Age of War is that combat is less lethal. Boss fights are more brain dead because you just hit roll, hit roll, hit roll. It's mind numbing. It was mind numbing before. It's even more mind numbing now. You just get to do boss fights faster now, I guess. Uh, Weapon farming. It's as simple as walking up to a vendor and purchasing the top tier weapons now in bulk. You can get momentum, which is the best mace in the game, in bulk. You can get the best two-handed agility sword, Belpator's Razor, in bulk. And you get a bunch of weapons in bulk from the get-go. You don't have to get a bladesmith anymore, because you can basically farm every meta weapon super easily without a bladesmith. For great axes, yeah, you do want to get a bladesmith. But I'd put Bowmaker above Bladesmith every day. But you like, not only that, not only all the weird fucking changes with the stamina that nobody asked for, but they keep releasing these updates without any fucking testing. They expect the community to test everything for them, and they don't give them the right tools to test everything for them. And the community can tell them this during the testing. Hey, look, we have infinite roll now. This is a stupid idea. And they'll implement it anyway. Not only that, but they'll double down on it when they implement it. So that, oh, you don't even have reduced stamina regen when you're over encumbered, because that's normal. And they just, with every update, it's like they cause irreparable damage to what should be a properly functioning full release of a game. The game has been out for way too long to be the mess that it is right now. And you can't, I don't know how people keep excusing the shit with like, there are just stupid exploits that are still in the game that should have been ironed out ages ago. And they keep adding more to the game because they don't do proper testing. And they have shit like the median building pieces that they changed, which just causes everything to lose stability, and people lost hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of work. And they're just like, "Oh, we'll give you a booster event." Like, I've seen many threads from PvE players saying that the game is too easy, or new players saying, "What am I supposed to be doing in this game? I can, like, I'm 10 hours in, I can already, kill everything with ease. All the bosses are easy. Like, what is there to do in this game?" And what did Funcom do? They make the game even easier. I don't get it. There's no grind to the game anymore. You can be up and running on a PvP server in like 3 hours. You spend an hour leveling up. You do the correct dungeon. You have all the resources, all the thralls you need. You buy all the weapons you need. Like, that's it. Like, yeah, the only other thing that's gating you is time to craft stuff, like actual building materials and that. But everything else, you can buy the best tools, you can buy the best weapons. The game, there's no interesting challenge. I don't know how, like, apart from just building stuff and mind-numbing farming, there's no substance to the game anymore. And what substance was left in terms of PvP, I think is gone. And not everyone agrees with that. Some people are liking the new system, but I think the majority can agree that it's a downgrade from what we had before. Yeah, the legendary weapons are more interesting. It's more interesting to use legendary weapons, I suppose. And it's also always more interesting, like when the meta does shift and you can figure out new ways and strategies of killing other players. Um, but PvE players have been asking for more interesting or challenging boss fights. PvP players have been crying out for more skill expressive changes to be made to combat. They didn't even need to be changed. They could have just reverted the combat back to what it was in like 2020, 2019. Um, but like, official servers have been dominated by Q-lock dagger spam. Like, that's the stuff that we wanted change. We wanted to get rid of the Q-lock. We wanted to get rid of like at least nerf daggers so that they weren't doing like they didn't have more damage than a katana. Like, why did daggers have more damage than a katana? It's stuff like that that like the claws make claws somewhat viable again. That's the stuff we want, but instead they do the stamina changes, and it's completely bullshit, and it's complete disregard for the community because they know what we are asking for, they know what we want, um, and sure you can't cater to everyone, but there are certain things that are just like across the board. Everyone wants these things. Everyone wants a more interesting game where there's actually stuff to grind for, and not just hey do this one dungeon and you got everything you need. Um, so it's just really shit, and they gaslight you. Like Dennis actually tries to gaslight the community into thinking this is what they want. Like, oh yeah, I know nobody asked for this, but this is an update that had to happen. This is a change we had to make the game better. Even though nobody else could recognize it, we at Funcom, we recognized that you definitely needed infinite roll. That was definitely a thing that needed to happen. And then you have people being like, oh yeah, now rolling thrust is broken. You need to get rid of that. Otherwise it'd be a good system. And it's like, no, it wouldn't. Because you can still infinite roll without rolling thrust. You would still have infinite roll. You just wouldn't have infinite attack. You wouldn't have infinite roll attack. Which would just make it even worse. Because now people can evade just as much as they can now, but you can't attack as much as you can now. So nerfing rolling thrust isn't the answer. Um, yeah, I feel like this is something that needs to be talked about in terms of Funcom and just their constant shitting on their communities, and just constantly bombarding us with this bullshit about oh yeah, bazaar and battle pass items are purely cosmetic. And no, from the very beginning, they've been pay to win. We've had building pieces that have more HP that cover up more area than any other building piece in the game. We've had creatures with faulty hitboxes that are literally unkillable. We have weapons and armors that have unique bonus stats that you can't get like the same combinations of. Um, even since DLC days, there have been items that they cost different amount of resources. Maybe they're cheaper to craft. Even just having a DLC weapon set means that you don't have to invest points, like knowledge points, into getting those specific weapons. If say you have the Argosian DLC and you want to make a Star Metal Great Axe, well, you don't need to invest points in a Star Metal Great Axe because you have the Argosian equivalent of a Great Axe, which does the same damage, but you don't need to invest points. Or you have like Tyrannian Bow, for instance, and it has the same damage as a Star Metal Bow, except again, you don't have to invest points, but not only that, it doesn't actually cost you Star Metal to craft it. And there are so many examples of this, and it become even worse with the bazaar items because now they're just coming up with completely unique stuff and unique stats that aren't represented in the let's say the base game at all. You have things like the thrall breaking and things, which take up far less space than just a single thrall wheel. There are so many pay to win facets in the game, and yeah, some of this stuff gets nerfed after complaints of the community, but other stuff just gets left. And there'll always be items that are pay to win, and I think it's absolutely disgusting.